My name is Abigail Harper. Most folks just call me Abby, and I never planned on coming back to Red Bluff, Texas. The town sits right where the hill country runs out of hills, and the plains take over. Mesquite, windmills, and skies so big it makes you feel small. I left at 18 with a duffel bag and a scholarship to UT Austin. Then kept going until I landed in Denver designing custom wedding rings for people who could afford seven-figure stones. I was good at it. Good enough that nobody here needed to know how well. But Grandma Ellie's will drag me home. Grandma Ellie raised me and my sister Olivia after our parents died in a flash flood when I was 9. She wore the same sapphire and diamond ring every day of her 78 years, the one Grandpa gave her the week he came home from Korea. 3 carats of old mine diamonds, deep blue Montana sapphires, and a platinum band worn thin from half a century of ranch work and wrangling 2 granddaughters who couldn't have been more different. Olivia is 3 years older, blonde like our mother, and has spent her whole life making sure everyone knows she's the pretty one, the social one, the one who stayed to take care of things. I was the quiet kid in the barn shop learning to solder silver while Olivia planned her next rodeo queen smile. The letter from the estate attorney said the house sold. The cattle sold. Everything split 50-50 except for personal items. Grandma's handwritten codicil was crystal clear. My ring goes to Abigail. She understands what it really means. I flew in, rented a dusty Silverado, and drove straight to Harper's Jewelers on Main Street, the only jewelry store in 3 counties, owned by old Mr. Delgado, who'd been trying to retire since Obama was president. Olivia had texted me to meet her there at 2 o'clock to settle things like adults. I walked in 10 minutes early. The bell above the door still sounded like a spur rowel. Olivia was already holding court by the vintage watch case, wearing 4-inch heels and a white blazer like she was about to close a real estate deal instead of strong-arm her little sister. "Well, look who finally showed up," she drawled, loud enough for Mr. Delgado and the 2 customers to hear. "I figured you'd be too busy playing with your little torches to bother with family obligations." "Afternoon, Liv," I said, keeping it light. "Mr. Delgado." Olivia didn't waste time. She turned to the room like she was on stage. Grandma was out of her mind those last months. Everybody knows the ring should come to the eldest granddaughter.
Tradition.
I'm prepared to be reasonable,
though.
She pulled a folded appraisal from her designer bag and slapped it on the counter.
$22. Abby. Cash. White.
Whatever you've got squirreled away from your arts and crafts hobby. Or hand over the ring right now. The 2 customers froze. Mr. Delgado pretended to polish a tray of turquoise bracelets that didn't need polishing. I felt every eye in the place. Same old Olivia. Turn everything into a public showdown so I'd fold just to make it stop. Grandma was sharp until the day she died, I said quietly. She put it in writing. Notarized. You were in the room.
Leave.
Her smile went brittle. Dementia's a funny thing. People get ideas. Lawyers get ideas. I'm sure Judge Randall would love to hear how you talked a sweet old lady into changing her will while she was on pain pills. Mr. Delgado cleared his throat. Ladies, maybe take this. Olivia cut him off.
No.
This is perfect. Right here in front of witnesses. She tapped the appraisal again. 20 grand or the ring. Little sister. You've got 5 minutes before I call Richard. He's with the sheriff's department now. You know, and we do this the official way. The bell rang again. I stepped outside, pulled my phone from my pocket, and dialed a number I'd saved 3 weeks ago when Mr. Delgado first hinted he was ready to sell. The banker in San Angelo answered on the second ring. Abby Harper. Wire's good. Full asking plus the inventory. I'll be there in 5 to sign. I walked back in. Olivia was mid-sentence, telling the room how selfish I'd always been. She stopped when she saw my face. "Mr. Delgado," I said. "Looks like today's your lucky day." He glanced up.
Confused.
"Come again?" I slid the cashier's check across the glass counter, the one I'd had overnight to the ranch the minute I knew Olivia would pull something like this. "We close in 10 minutes. Congratulations. You're retired." Olivia laughed, but it cracked in the middle. "You're bluffing, Mr. Delgado." Unfolded the check, read the amount, and looked at me with something close to reverence. "Abigail, are you sure?" "Positive." I turned to Olivia. "You want to keep standing in my store? That's fine. But the price of Grandma's ring just went from 20 grand to priceless. And you're trespassing." The two customers started clapping slow, West Texas style. One of them pulled out his phone to record. Olivia's face cycled through every shade of red the Texas sunset ever painted. She opened her mouth, closed it, then stormed out so hard the bell nearly ripped off its spring. Mr. Delgado handed me the keys. They were still warm from his pocket. "Welcome home, boss," he said, grinning like he'd just won the lottery instead of sold it. I hung Grandma's ring in the front window that same afternoon. Little sign underneath. Not for sale. Some things can't be bought, only earned. Word spreads fast in a town where the only traffic light still blinks yellow on Sunday. By closing time, there was a line out the door, people wanting to see the ring, shake my hand, tell me the stories Olivia had spread about me over the years, and how nobody ever really believed them anyway. I locked up at 6, sat on the bench out front, and watched the sun bleed orange across the mesa. For the first time since I was 9 years old, Red Bluff felt like it might fit me after all. But Olivia wasn't done. Not even close. The next morning I opened at 9 sharp. Mr. Delgado, now just Luis, showed up with kolaches and coffee like it was Christmas. Half the town filed through before lunch. Some bought.
Some just wanted to talk.
That's how small towns work. They don't need gossip columns. They've got front porches. Around noon, Jake Wheeler walked in wearing his sheriff's department Stetson. Jake and I took 9th grade biology together. He dissected the frog while I drew it. "Life's funny, Abby," he said, tipping the hat. "Got a minute?" We stepped into the back workshop. He closed the door. "Olivia filed a petition this morning," he said, handing me a copy. "Claims undue influence, lack of capacity, the whole 9 yards. Wants a temporary order forcing you to turn over the ring until the judge rules." I scanned the paperwork. Same old song, different verse. "She's also requesting the court freeze any sale of the store pending investigation," Jake added, looking uncomfortable. "Says you might be liquidating assets to avoid paying her fair share." I laughed. Couldn't help it. "Jake, I closed on this place yesterday. Cash deal. Title's already in my name." "I know," he said. "Judge Randall knows. But procedure is procedure." Hearing set for tomorrow, 10 a.m., after Jake left. I called Sarah Beth McKenna, best friend since kindergarten. Now the sharpest family law attorney in San Angelo. She answered on the first ring. "Already saw the filing," she said. "I'm driving down now. Bring every scrap of paper Grandma ever signed, plus that journal she kept." "And Abby?"
Breathe.
"Olivia's reaching." That afternoon, I went through boxes I hadn't opened in years. Found Grandma's leather-bound journal wedged between rodeo buckles and old tax returns. Last entry. Dated 3 days before she passed. Olivia came by again asking about the ring. Showed me pictures of new settings, said she could update it. Child never understood some things aren't broken. Abby sat with me yesterday and just held my hand.
No asking. No bargaining.
That's who it belongs to. I closed the journal and felt the weight lift off my chest like morning fog burning away. Sarah Beth arrived at dusk, took one look at the journal, and grinned like a coyote with a fresh hen.
Case closed, she said.
But let's make tomorrow interesting. The hearing was held in the old limestone courthouse, where my granddaddy once paid a fine for letting his cattle block the highway. Half the town squeezed into the pews, some for justice, some for the show. Olivia took the stand first, voice trembling with rehearsed grief. She talked about tradition, about being the one who stayed, about how I'd manipulated a dying woman. Sarah Beth waited until Olivia finished, then handed her the journal. MS. Harper, can you read the entry dated October 12th for the court? Olivia opened it, scanned, went pale. Out loud. Please, Judge Randall said, peering over his glasses. She stumbled through Grandma's words, how Olivia wanted to update the ring, how I just held her hand. Sarah Beth didn't raise her voice once. She simply introduced the notarized codicil, the doctor's affidavit of capacity, the video Grandma had recorded with the hospice social worker explicitly giving me the ring. Then she called me. I told the truth, that I never wanted to fight, that I would have shared everything else. But Grandma's wishes were the one line I wouldn't cross. Judge Randall didn't even leave the bench. Petition denied. MS. Abigail Harper is the lawful owner of the ring. MS. Olivia Harper's request for injunction is denied with prejudice. Court will entertain sanctions if further frivolous filings occur. He banged the gavel so hard the flag jumped. Olivia sat frozen. For the first time in my life. She looked small. Afterward, in the hallway, she caught my arm. Abby. Wait. I stopped. I'm broke, she whispered. Richard left. The house is in foreclosure. I thought if I could sell the ring. You thought you could bully me one more time, I said. Not unkindly. But this time the town was watching. She started to cry, ugly, shoulder-shaking sobs that turned heads. I almost walked away. Almost. Instead, I handed her a tissue from my purse. Come by the shop tomorrow, I said. We'll talk. Olivia showed up at 9:30 the next morning wearing yesterday's makeup and the same defeated slump I'd seen on rodeo cowboys after a bad draw. Luis had already opened. He took one look at her and disappeared into the back like a man who'd seen enough family drama for one lifetime. I poured her coffee in a real mug, not the paper ones I give customers, and sat her down at the workbench.
Talk to me, I said.
It spilled out like water through a busted dam. Richard's gambling. The maxed credit cards. The second mortgage she took out without telling anyone. The lies she told herself that it would all work out if she just had one big score. Grandma's ring had been the golden ticket in her head. I was ashamed, she said, voice raw. Ashamed I stayed, and still ended up failing. You left and made something of yourself. I figured if I could just get enough cash, I could fix everything and nobody would ever know how bad it got. I listened without interrupting. When she finished, the shop was so quiet I could hear the old safe ticking. You could have asked, I said. She laughed. Bitter. And here you say I told you so? Miss Perfect who never needed anybody. That's not fair.
Leave.
Isn't it? Her eyes flashed. You got the scholarships. The big city. The trust fund Dad set up none of us knew about. I cut her off. Dad set that up because he knew you'd spend every dime before it hit the account. He wasn't punishing you. He was protecting both of us. She deflated again. I opened the safe, took out the ring, and set it between us on black velvet. This never belonged to either of us, I said.
It belonged to Grandma.
And she wanted it with a granddaughter who understood love isn't something you leverage. Olivia stared at it like it might bite her. I'm not giving you the ring, I continued. But I'm not watching my sister lose her house either. I slid a folder across the bench. Inside was a contract, fair market price for the family home. Me buying it outright. Olivia renting month to month at cost until she got back on her feet. Option to buy back in 5 years at the same price. She read it twice. Tears dripped onto the paper. Why? She whispered. Because Grandma raised us better than this, I said. And because hate is heavier than any ring. She signed with shaking hands. That afternoon we moved her stuff into the guest room at the ranch, our parents' old place I'd quietly bought back from the bank. 2 sisters under the same roof, for the first time since high school, both pretending it wasn't weird. The first month was like walking on eggshells and boots. Olivia got a job waitressing at the cafe, nothing fancy, but honest work. She came home smelling like coffee and bacon, counting tips and quarters on the kitchen table. Some nights she'd sit on the porch swing and cry where she thought I couldn't hear. I gave her space. Space and chores. If you live on a ranch, everybody feeds something. One Saturday in April, the wildflowers were ridiculous, bluebonnets thick as carpet. I found her in Grandma's old workshop out back, the one nobody had touched since the funeral. She was holding Grandpa's torch, turning it over like it might speak. I used to watch you in here, she said without looking up. Thought you were wasting time. Turns out you were building a whole life. I leaned in the doorway. Still time.
Leave.
She shook her head. I'm 34 with a pile of debt and a rap sheet for being stupid. Not exactly prime material. Grandma started over at 50 after Grandpa died. I reminded her. Took in ironing. Raised cattle. Kept this place running. You're not dead. That seemed to land. In May I started teaching community jewelry classes on Tuesday nights, mostly retirees and bored housewives. Olivia came to watch the first one. Second week, she sat in the back. Third week, she asked if she could try wax carving. She was terrible at first, burned herself twice. Cursed like a sailor, but she kept showing up. By July, she sold her first piece, a simple silver cuff with a turquoise cabochon she'd cut herself. The lady who bought it cried because it matched her mother's wedding dress. Olivia framed the $50 check and hung it in the bunkhouse. Fall brought the county fair. I entered a necklace inspired by the ring, white gold oak leaves cradling a Yogo sapphire. Took grand champion. Olivia entered a pair of earrings she'd made from old spoons and won reserve. After the awards, she found me by the Ferris wheel. I talked to Sarah Beth, she said.
I'm filing bankruptcy.
Clean slate. Then I'm enrolling in the gemology program in Carlsbad. Night classes. I can commute. I raised an eyebrow. You hate school. I hated failing more. She stuck out her hand, callous now, stained with flux like mine used to be. Truce, she asked. I took it. Family?
Leave.
Not truce. She smiled for real. The first one I'd seen in years. 2 years later. Harper and Harper Fine Jewelry occupies the same brick building on Main Street, but the sign now has 2 names. Olivia runs the custom bench. I handle design and the books. We argue over pricing and music. She likes George Strait. I like Zach Bryan, but we argue like sisters, not enemies. Grandma's ring still sits in the window. The card reads, worn by Eleanor Hayes for 62 years. Survived dust storms, depressions, and family drama. Reminder, real treasures aren't things you fight over. They're the people you finally stop fighting. Some nights after closing, Olivia and I sit on the tailgate of my truck with a six-pack and watch the stars come out over the plains. We talk about everything and nothing. Sometimes we don't talk at all. Last week a girl came in 19, shaking, telling us her older brother was trying to pressure their mom into selling the family land. Olivia listened, same way I once listened to her spill her guts on my workbench. Then she did something I never expected. She took Grandma's ring out of the case, slipped it on the girl's finger just long enough for her to feel its weight. This stayed in our family through worse than what you're facing, Olivia told her. Hold on to what matters. The rest will sort itself. The girl left crying in a good way. Later, I asked Olivia why she did it. Because somebody should have done that for me a long time ago, she said. Before I turned into the villain of my own story. I bumped her shoulder. You're not the villain anymore. She smiled, softer than I've ever seen. Turns out redemption's just another word for second breakfast. You show up hungry. You work for it. And nobody gets to tell you you don't belong at the table. Red Bluff still talks about the day Abigail Harper bought the jewelry store right out from under her sister's nose. But now they also talk about the Harper sisters, how they turned hurt into hammered silver. How forgiveness looks a lot like a perfectly set stone catching light exactly where it's supposed to. Grandma's ring never left the family. It just taught us, finally, what family actually means. Some things can't be bought, sold, or bullied away from you. They can only be earned, one careful, honest choice at a time. And out here under this big West Texas sky, that's more than enough.